Hey, Chris.
Afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Breaking into Cybersecurity. Today, we have an AMA special on security awareness, this being Security Awareness Month. So, you have myself, I'm Professor Roger White, on to answer any of your questions about security awareness. But in the meantime, while people get to come on, Professor Roger White, what are some of the basic security awareness things that you might share with your friends and family?
Oh, friends and family. Stay off the computer, Grandma. That is the best security advice. No, uh, what I do is first thing is the browser. I think that they use the browser more than anything on the computer. Uh, I will show them the where the lock is at on the URL. What does that mean? I show them what the security features of the browser, so that when they browsing the sites, when they're doing their banking, they know what those features should look like when they're on a a, a real bank site. Let's put it that way, right? Um,
Okay. So here's a pop-up question for you.
oh,
Saving passwords. Do you go with the in-browser password? Do you go with an external password manager? Or do you go with a little black book that grandma has on her desk?
well, yeah, you know what's funny? They have something called a password book that my grandmother and my aunts, they all bought each other this password book. It is hilarious. Like literally, they bought it. It says password book on it. Like, that is crazy. Um, so yeah, that's a great concern. Well, I know in the years, Google and Edge has gotten much better with the password management. I will say that that's better than nothing, but I would try to get them to a LastPass or some kind of password vault or password manager. It'll be a little better. But the last resort, I would at least have them use a Google or Apple or a Edge password manager.
I would agree with you there. It definitely allows um, them to have randomly generated passwords,
Yes.
and that's very helpful, especially for those that might not know how to create randomly generated passwords. Um, I I I would recommend for potentially older people, unless I'm planned to be their IT support person, that they
Yes.
do write it down in their little black book, and think of it from a risk management perspective, right? What are the chances of someone coming in to your grandma's house and specifically stealing this book, unless your grandma is a high level target, right? Um, the probability is low, but the impact to her would be high. So if we're looking at risk mitigation strategies, we could probably like have her put it in a safe or something like that, right? As a means to go, especially for her critical passwords. That even though the day to day ones might be in the browser, the bank ones, the important ones might be in her little black book. That way, if a hurricane comes, she'll likely take the black book versus the desktop computer that will be left behind.
Yeah, well, my grandmother is a target. If you ever had a fried chicken, you would you would definitely be in her house all the time. So you
Are we
were looking
protecting
for,
those recipes?
yes, yes, yes. So she has recipes that she don't even pass down to the family yet. You got to be privileged. So she does have confidential information that that black password book might be very valuable to somebody.
Well, then your grandma might have to think about other risk management techniques for her recipes and ensure that you're saved in multiple locations and also password protected.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, what other things might you tell them about? Like, do you worry that, say, for your grandma, even if she's not on the machine, what do you tell them about vishing and smishing, and what are those for those that might not know what those are?
Oh yeah, so I have an amazing story about that. So I've been in IT for 20 years, and me and a couple of my cousins, we've been in IT for years. I mean, the family knows this. They call us for support all the time. So that happened to my aunt. My aunt got one of those support, oh, your machine has a virus. Click on here, call us so we can remove it, right? She got that, and instead of calling me or my cousins, especially my other cousin Brian, she called the number, and they remoted in and using. I think they was using not VNC. I forgot what it was called, but they
Login?
no, it's
Oh,
another one.
TeamViewer.
No, not TeamViewer. Not it's man, you know it too. We used to use it
Yeah,
with
VNC for
yes, there you go.
yeah, VNC.
Yes, yes. So they install that on her machine. Simple tools. They installed it on a machine. They looked all through her machine and they supposedly removed the virus. And she paid like $100 and something US dollars to do that. Then it just kept happening, and she had to keep calling them and pay. She must have paid them at least about $1,000 before I was like, "What the hell is going on?" Right? And I stepped in because I just happened to be there when that pop up came, and she said, "Oh no, I have support. I'll just call them. They'll remove it." I'm like, "What?" And that's how I found out. So yeah, so that is something you would think that, I assume she would call me first, but they don't because I guess she wants to be independent, and not bother me. But that's what I would tell them. Uh, have somebody else check these links and everything before you click on it. Call somebody else. Call, if you have a tech support in your family, cool. If not, reach out to somebody else and make sure that this is legit.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the times, if you're asking for urgency, if you're asking for sensitive information, if you're asking you to do something out of the normal, double check that with someone, even if it's your neighbor.
Yes, yes. I love the IRS one where they're like, okay, Chris, this is the IRS, pay us now, and we'll forever forgive your debt. You are forgiven, my son. And you're like, okay,
You
yeah,
have
I
been
want to pay.
forgiven.
Yes, yes. And it's like, yeah, I want to pay now. Okay, stay on the phone. I want you to go to Walmart, buy a green dot card while we on the phone just to make sure you're doing it. I think that is so bold and hilarious, but people fall for it, you know.
Yeah, people do fall for it, and they rely on just a small percentage of people falling for it to maintain them.
That's
Uh,
enough.
yeah,
They, they got millions of dollars from that hack, you know.
So what other tips and tricks would you give them during Cybersecurity Awareness Month?
Oh, another trick is, yeah, well, we talked about the links, the emails, teach them how to filter out emails, spam, teach them about spam. I had another aunt that goes into the spam because she thought that was organizing her emails. So she's like, oh, okay, they organized it nice for me. So all my shopping emails go in this spam folder, and she clicks on everything, right? So I would teach them about that, email security, email safety, right? What to click and what emails look legit. I think they need to know that, right?
Mhm.
Like the to and the from.
That's a great tip. What about keeping your devices up to date?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that's a good one too. What is good with Windows, and I work at Microsoft, is now Windows has taken a more proactive stance. Before, vendors used to take a stand back, right? This is your product. You can do whatever you want, right? We're not going to police your product. But now they understand that they're going to have to police your product, right? And be more proactive and make sure that those updates are there. Make sure that Microsoft built-in security features are on. And if it's not, they do the nag. What's that? We have a stand for it, nagware or nag,
Yeah,
where it just keeps
pops up.
nagging you. Yeah, it just keeps nagging you.
Yeah, and for that, I would recommend that you turn on the auto updates, whether
Yeah.
that is on Mac, on PC, and they'll download them and auto update them. But don't forget about your phones as well. Your
Oh,
phones might have updates. The apps on your phone might have updates. So go into those app stores and update them on a regular basis.
yeah. And
Because
Apple is good with that. They have it set by default that it's on. You have to go and fool around to turn them off.
Yeah,
Right?
you do. Some of the things though is they'll potentially let it go for months before it forces it.
Yeah.
It forces you to do it, especially as you get to the end of life of 1 year's OS and you're going into the next one. They won't force a full upgrade on the user. So, for example, my wife, I'll have iOS 14 and I'm showing her all these cool new features and she'll be like, how'd you get that? And I go in her phone and it's like 3 versions too late. I have to update it 3 times before I could get to 14. So I have to
Right,
download
right.
all those updates and install them. So yeah, definitely do those on a regular basis, and the apps too, because some people think that these updates are just for security. No, they also include functionality updates, which they might have noticed are broken and fix them. So it also will help improve the usability of your machine to do those updates as well.
Yeah, yeah. And some of those updates might not be security under the security label, but some of those functional updates allow for you to do things better, which will in turn allow for better security. So if there's a couple of steps that I don't have to do anymore, that those less steps would allow for a more secure platform, believe it or
Absolutely,
not. Yeah.
absolutely. Um, what might you tell them about when you're traveling and they see different Wi-Fi's and things like that?
Oh, yes. So this is a little tricky, right? Because the hackers have what is called evil twin, where they could actually mirror the airport Wi-Fi or Starbucks Wi-Fi, right? So you think you connected to the airport. It looks just like the airport, at least the name and the front appearance. And then when you log in, they pop up this screen and tell you, hey, if you want Wi-Fi for free, you have to sign up. right? And then they ask you for your username, your password, your ticket number. They just start asking for credit card, right? So one thing I tell them, well, one thing is good is that because of 5G, right? So this is one thing. Because of 5G, we're not really reliant on Wi-Fi like we used to, right? I remember a couple of years ago, if you're not on Wi-Fi in the airport, you're not getting on the internet because the reception was so bad. But now today, 5G is more stronger than the Wi-Fi, airport Wi-Fi, right? So if you don't have to get on Wi-Fi, please don't. Most of us in America, at least, has unlimited plans where we won't take a hit if we're on the if we're on our cell phone.
Yeah.
You know.
And the other thing with that is, if you're connecting to a Wi-Fi that you think you've connected to before, it would likely auto connect. So if you're being forced to reconnect, don't give anything that you wouldn't normally do when connecting with that. So sometimes, for example, with Xfinity, when you travel with them, they'll cause you to re-authenticate, but that's using the Xfinity app. They'll redirect you to the
Yes.
Xfinity app. They won't keep it in that same screen. So if they're trying to force you to log in, that could be a sign. The other thing to look for is when you leave your Wi-Fi on in untrusted environment, they're actually able to see every single Wi-Fi that you've previously connected to, because what your phone does is it goes, "Hey, SSIDs," and names all the SSIDs. Have I connected to you before? And it looks for the SSIDs that match the ones in your environment, and
Oh,
that's how they pop up the familiar networks or the remembered networks.
yes.
So an attacker could potentially see every SSID you connected to when you connect to their hotspot. So they could use that to do recon on you. There's a black hat talk about that where
Hmm.
they were able to identify down to 3 people in the audience, based on everyone that connected to their phone and doing a quick social media search um, live on that talk. And it
Oh,
was
that was deep.
it was pretty interesting how OSINT can be used in that case.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely deep because it displays your phone number, right?
Yeah. No, it didn't display your phone number, but between looking at the SSID of all the things that you connected to, um, there's companies that display them geographically, and what they did is they did an analysis of the SSID names, compared it to where they potentially lived, looked for SSID matches in that area, where they potentially traveled to based on their LinkedIn or social media information. Oh, they went to this area with this hotel. And they were able to narrow it down to a couple people in the audience. So
Oh, wow, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That that that's
So
OC.
if you're red teaming, that's the type of strategies you can use.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great to do in a conference room. Yeah, yeah. Oh
So
man.
so now we're switching to work. What what
Okay.
what tips might you give one of your coworkers that might be in finance around security awareness?
Okay, so I think that this is where I think companies get confused or I think fail in a strong security awareness program is that they rely on one or two people to train 40, 50,000, or 20,000 or 5,000. I think that the security awareness program needs to be departmental and train some advocates in those departments, and then have them train constantly. Have a more consistent program where they're training each other. I
So
think that's more
potentially
effective.
like security champions that might
Yes.
remind the people in, say, finance to watch out for change of invoice schemes, and which we in security might classify business email compromise schemes,
Uh-huh.
that we there's no malware, there's no bad links, but what they're trying to do is to social engineer someone in finance to change a bank account number, change an address where a check is being sent to, get gift cards for your boss, things like that. Those are social engineering schemes,
Right.
but they don't have any malicious links. So they have less of the identifiers that a regular email might have. So be careful for those.
Yes, yes, most definitely. And we need those security champions, because there's no way cybersecurity team could enforce that every day. They might can have a one cool day training, YouTube videos, but to really enforce that, you need a security champion in each department.
Yeah.
Right?
That's very helpful, and potentially for smaller companies, you could work with a security provider that provides micro training, little trainings at a time, so you do it consistently over the year versus one big annual training that people will forget in 30 days or a
Yeah.
week, maybe.
And then, yeah. And then I'll always make the joke when I'm sitting with clients, is that the hackers are in your training. So they see what you're training, and then the next day they change their approach.
Yeah.
So your training is not effective anymore 2 days later, right? Because the hackers was in your training and they changed their whole approach now,
Yeah.
right?
I personally like to differentiate hackers from threat actors,
Yeah.
just to differentiate that, because you
Okay.
could have hackers. You definitely will have hackers on your red team. Hopefully, you don't have any insider threat actors.
Yes, you need threat actors as
Yes.
that
Yeah.
got hired.
So
Yeah.
we talked about threat actors. What are some of the things to look out for, or what should they do about potential internal threats if they see any? What would you recommend?
Internal threats
Yes.
like employees.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we just had one case that we was working with the authorities on. It was a couple of years back, and if you ever have a chance to Google that, it was a couple that snuck out. That it was an FBI sting, though, and this is what really opened my eyes to insider threats. We always talk about it, but they snuck out nuclear submarine secrets, right, on a SD card,
Yep.
and they were selling it. Luckily, on the other end was an FBI agent. It was an FBI sting. They did it 3 times. They did it one in an SD card, and they put it in a bubble gum, right? Because they have guards that check that pat you down in and out. Um, and then the second time was in a peanut butter sandwich,
Mhm.
right? So so that was a big, big insider threat. And nuclear secrets is literally treason. That's war, right? You have declared war if you're stealing military secrets, right? So it was a big deal. So I think that not it's a couple of things we need. Of course, we need the technical controls, right? What could have been fixed in that? They should have had DLP, right? To have rules to say you can't copy this to another storage device. They should have had canaries just in case they do copy it, we could track it and see that somebody copied and left the building with this information, right? So the technical controls, I think, we could find those. But I think the bigger thing is administrative controls. We need to have internal intelligence. We need to look at the psychology of our employees, right? Their mental state, their physical state. If things have changed, right, these things need to be looked at too, right?
Yeah,
The
and some of the
behavior.
things in insider threats are they might ask you to get information for them because you have access, they don't, and they'll ask you to get the information.
Right.
Or they might say, oh, their account's locked out, but they need it printed out or whatever. They'll come up with an excuse, but that's something to look out for is
Yeah. Yeah.
people
And we're
that
not
are
monitoring
requesting
that.
information through you.
Yeah. And we're not monitoring that. Why did Roger, the janitor, right, go ask the CFO, some accounting information? What, right? That we're not tracking that or logging that, right? We should have somewhere where the CFO can say, hey, Roger asked me to do this for him, right? So those things too. I think we have to start doing internal intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you see something, escalate it to your manager, escalate it to your manager's manager, HR. If you don't have a technical team that you can report to, and sometimes companies have security hotlines that you can call and report suspicious or unethical activity to as well. So do that as well. And one of the last things that I like to recommend people, if it's urgent, if it's quote unquote important, if it needs to be done by a certain deadline and you're not expecting it, think about it for a second
Yes.
before you respond. Like even put it off till tomorrow and like go back to it and go, huh? Is this real? Like, because if it were real and it were your boss, they'd probably interact with you between now and tomorrow to make sure
Yeah.
that they really wanted to do it.
Yeah. And believe me, I used to be an accountant, so that is norm where people will call me up and say, hey man, I need this information, which is sensitive information. In a normal situation, they wouldn't get this information, or they have to go through a lot of hoops to get it,
Mhm.
right? But it's the end of the month, and we do that, right? So it is a normal occurrence, but we need to start checking that and pulling that back, right? And
Mhm.
making sure those controls are not overridden. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final tips that you would share with them around this time? What about for
Uh,
job seekers? What tips would you share for job seekers around security awareness?
oh yes, this is beautiful. So the great resignation, right? I don't know why I can't say that word, right? About 11 million people left, just quit, right? In total, in the last 2 years, the COVID years, I call it, right? 11 million people left their job, just totally left. Hackers know that. Hackers read the news. So now those people are going to be looking for jobs now, right? Yeah, okay, they was on unemployment, they was living a good life. Now that all that has run out. You know what I'm saying? We got a new president, all that has run out. So now people are going back into the workforce. They're desperate. So now hackers are setting up fake jobs and fake job sites and to allure people looking for jobs to give more information or to do things like log into things or download things, right? That they would normally not do, right? But in the sake or the pursuit of a job.
Yeah.
So we got to be very careful of that now.
The other thing is be very suspicious if you're hired very quickly over text message and then being asked to come out of pocket for things like your cell phone and your
Uh,
new computer,
yeah,
and then they're going to send you a check, and they might send you too much, and then they're going to want a refund. um, those are all big
those
things
are
that
good.
folks
I
have been
love that.
threat actors have been doing to con job seekers into either washing money for them, or even if you did get your money back, um, you're essentially helping to wash the money for them, or it'll be fraudulent, the check, and you would have refunded your own money and then been out of pocket for all that equipment that you bought.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, that's a great hack. But also too, and there's a lot of simple hacks that if you look at it individually, you say, but when you think over the big context of 100,000 people doing it, like there was one where they say, okay, you got to pay for your own background check, right? So give us $175.
Yeah.
And of course, it was Cash App or something, it wasn't no legitimate, right?
Yeah.
Normal way bank businesses do it. And 100, 200,000 people pay for that. That is awesome, right? So hackers do that too. So it's not just the big things sometimes. Sometimes it's the little things. $50, cash at me for whatever
Yep.
ID or whatever they think of.
Yeah, so be careful for those. You shouldn't have to. I hate to say, you shouldn't have to pay to apply for a job.
No,
You shouldn't have to um, pay anything out of pocket for things like that.
right,
And if you do, make sure that you've legitimately verified this with your companies,
right.
their process and everything like that.
Yeah.
So we wow, this has been quite a great conversation. Went past the bottom of the hour.
Oh, well,
Thank you, Professor Roger White, for joining us and talking through some of these security awareness tips and tricks for folks at home, at work, and those of you on the job hunt. Thank you very much. Follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and share us with all your friends and family. Have a great day, everyone.
yes. Have a great day.